I chose to do a formal analysis of The Girl with the Pearl Earring. The Girl with the Pearl Earring is an oil painting made by Johannes Vermeer, who skillfully uses the elements and principles of design to create a captivating portrait. In the following presentation, we will discuss in further depth the methods and meanings behind this work using various artistic techniques. Part 1. Description. The formal qualities of The Girl with the Pearl Earring are that it is a painting made with oil paint on a canvas that is roughly 40 by 35 centimeters or just under 18 by 14 inches. This work is a representational portrait of a Trony, which is a real person but a character that comes from the mind of the artist. This painting is 2D but has a perception of depth through the use of light and shadow. Implied line is used in the seam between the two-dimensional background and the girl's face, as well as the many edges in the folds and layers of her clothing. Shape is used in the roundness of her shoulder, in the curve of her face, and the way her scarf wraps around her head, as well as in the straight-edged shapes of her collar and veil. Color is used to create contrast between the background and the girl's face and body. Her skin is a warm pale cream, which is similar to the pale yellow of her headscarf. According to Heritage Science, Vermeer exploited the turbid medium effect, blue light scattering, to create cool midtones. By Annelies van L. et al. 2, which are seen in the tones of her skin and in her clothing. Texture is created with small dots and different brushstrokes on her clothing, in addition to the use of bright highlights on her skin and the pearl earring that she is wearing. A range of values is used to create contrast between the hues of the girl and the dark background, as well as to gently blend between the illuminated and shadowed portions of her face. The next part of this section is the description. The Girl with the Pearl Earring depicts a girl in front of a dark backdrop. This girl turns her head over her shoulder and seems to look toward or at the viewer. Her skin is illuminated and creates sections of shadow and light across her face. The girl's clothing is composed of edged shapes due to the folds in her garments. Color is used in the cool tone shadows as well as in the warm tone light. The third section. Girl with the Pearl Earring was made in 1665 and is kept in Mauritshuis, an art museum in the Netherlands. This was not a commission of one specific person. Rather, this piece is a portrait of a Trony. This means that the painting is a representation of the character Vermeer imagined, and he painted it as a study to display his artistic abilities. This type of painting was a popular choice of subject during the Dutch Golden Age, which began a few years after the creation of Girl with the Pearl Earring. Vermeer is a Dutch artist who is also well known for his paintings of everyday life within the home. Many of these are set in a place like his hometown in Delft, Holland. The second part of formal analysis is an analysis. The Girl with the Pearl Earring has a wide and skilled use of both the elements and principles of design. One of the most obvious examples is the principle of contrast. This is used between the round shape and the smooth appearance of her face and the sharp shapes and textures of her clothing. As well as this, there is a clear distinction between the emphasis and subordination of this painting. Another way Vermeer uses the principles of design is in the dual functioning eyes of the girls. Specifically, her dark eyes unite the dark of the background and the pale of her face, while simultaneously varying from the hues of her face. Directional forces are used in the way the eyes of the viewer are drawn diagonally upward with the shape of her garment and the shadow of her cheek. After this, the eyes are stopped by the strong horizontal lines present in the girl's veil. Finally, the gaze of the viewer is brought back around to her face by the curve of her head. The face is the main emphasis of this artwork, and the eyes linger on the girl's eyes. This is due to the visual weight of her eyes, which seem to penetrate right into the darkness behind her. The directional forces surround the central focus, combine to create a balanced track of movement through this painting. behind this track of movement is the background. This is made visually interesting with a painterly application of lighter and darker hues that add depth. The shapes and lines between the girl's clothing and face are the most common use of repetition. This can be seen in the steep diagonal line connecting the shadow of her cheek and shoulder, as well as in the gentle slope of her collar and jawline. Furthermore, the curve of her headscarf creates repeating folds and creases that also resemble the curve of her shoulder. This artwork is a bit smaller than the actual scale of a human head, but it is close. As for her proportions, we are seeing her body in profile and her face in three-fourths perspective, which makes her face appear wider and her shoulders narrower. However, her proportions remain balanced because the perspective Vermeer uses is used throughout the painting. The third part of this formal analysis is the interpretation. The Girl with the Pearl Earring is a portrait of a Trony and is solely focused on this character. Thus, there is no prominent use of symbolism or storytelling in this piece. However, to Vermeer, this portrait was an opportunity to experiment with light and its properties. Vermeer wanted to create an experience for the viewer, one that portrayed the intimate and domestic, Kushner 1, parts of everyday life in a place like contemporary Delft. This piece by Vermeer, along with many others of his, did not receive the attention it does today. This artwork, titled Girl with a Pearl Earring, very accurately describes what the painting meant to Vermeer. It is a beautiful piece and remains alluring by its craftsmanship alone. Vermeer does an excellent job using a tasteful array of artistic techniques and the principles and elements of design. The fourth part of this analysis is the judgment, beginning with formal theory. The artwork Girl with a Pearl Earring has many components that make it visually interesting and aesthetic. However, it is the sum of these parts that make this piece so beautiful. Without the softly lit curve of the girl's face, the defined creases and folds of her clothing would not carry the same visual effect or satisfaction. Vermeer uses the elements and principles of design and his skill with oil paints to make an excellent piece of art, one worthy of being called a masterpiece. Aspects of this painting alone, like the girl's glowing skin and direct eye contact, stir emotions and feelings of curiosity within the viewers. Even without symbolistic details or an eventful scene playing out, The Girl with the Pearl Earring is visually pleasurable because of its artistic qualities. Next is expressive theory. The Girl with the Pearl Earring has expressive qualities in the clarity of the girl's gaze and also in her light-bathed beauty. Vermeer has used an idea from his imagination and represented it in a way that is visually appealing. Though this artwork is quite beautiful and can arouse feelings to some degree, it is not an intense or changing experience. When looking at the girl, there are no significant emotions or ideas trying to be conveyed here, even though it is lovely to look at. Third of all is contextual theory. This particular piece of artwork by Johannes Vermeer was made right before the beginning of the Dutch Golden Age. During this time, the use of tronies and genre painting were specifically favored. Additionally, Vermeer was considered the most talented genre painter in Holland during the 17th century. Walid, Prevedello, and Carew won. Genre painting is a painting that depicts a person doing an everyday task or activity. There's a real personal experience between the viewer and the girl that is like a shared sense of curiosity. On the other hand, though light emotions are shared, this artwork was not designed to share a contemporary concept or interest from this time. Girl with a Pearl Earring comes from the mind of Johannes Vermeer and was painted simply to present his idea in a visual way. In conclusion, I think that the best mode for analysis for the Girl with the Pearl Earring is formal theory. I think this because Vermeer created the piece to be visually beautiful. Furthermore, this artwork was intended to be enjoyed for its excellence and artistic qualities. This is in contrast to the aspects of expressive or contextual theory, where the art was created to impact emotions or inspire ideas. In summary, The Girl of the Pearl Earring is a captivating portrait done in oil paint by the talented Dutch artist Johannes Vermeer. This painting beautifully displays Vermeer's knowledge on the principles and elements of design, as well as his skill in using them. Girl with a Pearl Earring briefly preceded the Golden Age and depicts a Troni, or an imaginary person or character used in art, in an intimate portrait. Furthermore, this painting is best analyzed with the formal theory because it was created to be enjoyed for its beauty and appreciated for its design. In conclusion, The Girl with the Pearl Earring is a visual pleasure that is valued for its beauty and display by Vermeer. This is part 1 of my works cited. In part 2. This concludes my presentation.